You know, and like, you know, I've been away for a minute, right? And since came home, right, I've been traveling, right? And watching the growth of the development like I was doing the bill the other day, right? And I'm seeing how this nation it's just like branch of a tree, just it's everywhere, right? And I try to do my best to just add. I just came from now on here, right? I just drove up here just when I came in, and from here I'm going home to Virginia. So I just want to stop by because the God sent me to fly. I was actually once surprised God to show up, so He sent me to fly, right? So and I'm just saying, it's for me. I love it, God. You know, I love the bill to see, because my first migration from Nawa was Massachusetts, right? I used to live in Springfield, Massachusetts, back in the 80s, right? And that was my first awareness, man, of how this nation was coming out of the day. I mean, we was wild and buck. You know, everything you hear about Medina was Medina. Right. And, but when I went to Springfield, Massachusetts, and seen them brothers out there, it made me turn my hat backwards. I went out there with deep pants and, you know, beating up people because, you know, and the guards, you know, they had a house out there. If you all give a brief history, you know, the house got firebombed. God, Keelan, younger brother's older brother got killed. A guard named Yusuf went out there, but Dumar and Alim and them went to the college out there, just a brief history. But that was the first migration outside of Jersey and the rest of them, right? But they was a different bill. I'm so used to hearing a similarity so you can get my picture of how we build it now, why, as opposed to when you go outside of now, why. Totally different bill. Right. We didn't even deal with doctors and nurses. I went in there with stitches in my back. The God, my one earth, took stitches out of my back. So it made me reevaluate. Damn, man, we got nurses in this nation. Because we ain't no nurse, we ain't doctors, we didn't do that. We didn't do none of that. We didn't go to the doctors, we was our own, we got the powder here today. That was our favorite saying, we got the powder here today. So it kind of like, damn, this shit is real. You know what I'm saying? Had it been in that while, I'm like, God, you a doctor? You a nurse? So it gave me a different insight.
You got cool now?
Yeah, you know, yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? Brothers that had, you know, that was families well off and shit. You were 10%, you had to sit back and don't really show a person like you was like in the middle class. All that. I mean, and I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna put it on myself to say that. You know, when I got Nas, man, a lot of things that I learned kind of messed me up in a way. Because we could have been better off as a nation financially. Because a lot of us had riches, a lot of us had families that we was the 10%. So we just threw that to the side. Well now look, we got kids and we scrapping. It's really hard for us.
Perfect example, right? So there was this brother, his name was Infinite, right? And he didn't really know his lessons and he was a little soft. He wasn't like, you know, a tough guy in Medina like the rest of us, you know what I mean? So of course, I targeted him, you know what I mean? Beat him up, took his lessons, you know what I mean? Today, this dude, right, John Jackson, right, he owns his own plane, he has a software company out in California, and he got millions. That's the kind of stuff that we needed in this nation, but because of the mindset of where I was at that time when I was a young kid or whatever, you know what I mean, I cast him out, and he wouldn't have nothing to do with us after that, because I embarrassed him in front of everybody.
I wanted to touch on something. Because you can tell there was a different energy in Nawa. Medina's energy was different than the energy that came out the desert in Lord's Island.
And Mecca.
And you know what I'm saying? I know, I can only speak from my experience.
Where
right?
you from?
I'm from Lord's Island.
Okay.
Right? I got knowledge in Lord's Island. My educator is from the desert.
Who was that?
Knowledge born. He was taught by Lord Real.
Okay.
And yeah, so you can tell the energy is different when you're in those ciphers. Because as the God said, the aggressive tones are different. The way things are being manifested are different. But the understanding eventually becomes the same. every individual, like, because when I moved from East Medina to Long Island, all I heard was wise, freedom, this, that, and the third. As a young brother, I didn't know anything about the Govs. I just thought that was their name. I was only like 8, 9 years old. You know what I'm saying? Baby on Wise, you know what I'm saying? And all of them would come to the rest. So when I moved to Long Island, my mother's best friend's son had knowledge. So I seen him. I said, yo, Chuck, what's up, my man? I'm out here full time now. He said, man, don't call me Chuck, call me God Allah. I didn't know what he was talking about. That was my first introduction to actually the Nation of Gods and Earths. Then my older physicals came home from the belly. They had knowledge. And Knowledge Born was teaching them. And I used to always pick at them. You know, being young, you saying you God, you know what I'm saying, you know the questions and the things people would always say back in the day, if you God, knock this down, if you God, do this, woo, woo, woo. And then one day, Knowledge Born sat me down. And he built with me. And in each and every one of us, when you was around the 85% before you got knowledge, there was something that you felt was different about you than it was them. There was always something that made you feel like I stand out. So when he built me, I didn't understand a lot of the words. So that forced me to go into the library. That forced me to get into the encyclopedia. That forced me to get into the dictionary. Because I didn't know what interorientation meant.
And that was a big lesson back in the days. Interorientation, interpretation.
You can't even find it in the dictionary.
We can't. And
Not a modern dictionary.
Not a modern dictionary. 1930 dictionary.
There's a reason for that.
And when you look at some of the words, because when I got knowledge, I was 9 turning 10. So it was hard to like understand a lot of the verbiage, the language that was being spoken. So I used to stick up under Knowledge Born, and he would take me to the desert where I met, you know what I'm saying, brothers like Allah Mathematics, Saladin, some of these great brothers, you know what I'm saying, at the time, and Allah Foundation and all of them. Jamel Messiah, you know what I'm saying, Lord Revealed, may peace be upon him. So in the process, I started growing, but still didn't understand a lot of things. Still didn't understand I was carrying weight that I didn't know how to carry actually as a young brother. And being in many heated ciphers, because we all know that when you went to the Medina Parliament, you had to be ready. And coming from Lord's Island, you definitely had to be ready, because we were looked at as the weak link. So everybody couldn't go to Parliament. Before we went to Parliament in Mecca, before we went to Parliament in Medina, we would meet in Freeport, Long Island, at the Long Island Railroad. You know what I'm saying? We would have a cipher. If you uttered, stuttered, or muttered, you couldn't go. Because you was representing Lord's Island as a whole.
Okay.
And you never knew what brother you was gonna meet at that point in time, because back then, you didn't just walk into the Parliament. There were ciphers on every corner before you got there, and we weren't allowed at that point in time to walk by and just say peace. Because the brother would stop and be like, yo, come add on to the cipher. So you had to be always prepared to build.
Pardon yourself, question. What part of Long Island are you talking about? You said it was ciphers everywhere you could go in Long Island? This is Wyandands, Freeport?
Rondance, Amityville, Roosevelt, Hempstead, Westbury, Glen Cove, Freeport, Baldwin, Elmont, you know what I mean? Because when I got it in Bill Wisdom, you walked out your door, the door down was God, or across the street was God. You was around God all the time. And at no given time could you say, well, I ain't seen God, or I don't see my brothers. You couldn't even go to the store at that point in time and buy Wonder Bread. Wonder Bread was an issue.
So here's the problem. Here's what happened, right? So basically, once knowledge itself got into the high schools and the junior high schools, it was everywhere. right? And because of the fact that, like, you know, all the girls was into the gods, and if you wasn't God, you couldn't get none, you know what I mean? And all the gangs that still existed that weren't God wouldn't mess with the gods and would mess with you if you wasn't God and not a part of that gang, right? It was a mass explosion of population of gods all throughout the 5 boroughs and beyond in the surrounding areas, you know what I mean, which included Lord's Island, because like a lot of the brothers who wound up in Lord's Island came from the oasis, they came from the desert, you know what I mean, and what happened was back in that day, the desert was the gods and earth with money, like he was talking about, right? And when they attained a certain amount or degree of wealth, right, they moved up. And to move up from Queens means to go to Long Island. You know what I mean? And that's how all them areas that he just mentioned got populated.
You must do your own research, as I did.
If Mecca did this.